I'll give you the quick answer and maybe paint the picture for you. Imagine yourself as a fish farmer. Those of you who aren't fish farmers, this time of year the fish are being stocked and people are starting to feed every day, and within another month fish farmers are going to be up all throughout the night keeping oxygen levels up. They have to be out there 7 days a week from about early May until the end of September. They don't get a full night's sleep ever from that period of time because they're up throughout the night keeping their fish alive. They're out on the farms. They work 100-hour work weeks. So imagine doing that all summer long. And then September, you're out there, you've checked your ponds, you've looked at everything, you've done everything, and it's 9 o'clock and you go home to catch 3-4 hours of sleep, and you go back out to that pond 4 hours later to see a flock of 1,000 pelicans rising up off that pond. I think their belly aching is justified. When you see a flock of 1,000 pelicans, the problem with the birds and bird depredation is a complex kind of an issue. We're on a major flyway. We have done a lot of things to our natural environment where we've drained a lot of lands, and the historic natural resting places for the birds on this flyway have been removed because of all kinds of reasons that humans wanted to remove them for. And so as these birds are flying back and forth and they look down for a resting place, what do they see? They see ponds that fish farmers pay $2,500 an acre to build to try to make a living for their families. So they land on these ponds, and it's not really a fair fight. If you've ever watched this happen, a double-crested cormorant, for example, that causes a lot of problems, along with the pelicans. In the wild, a double-crested cormorant gets together in really big flocks, and if you see them in the ocean doing this, or even the Arkansas River, they'll get together in really big flocks, and they'll herd the fish. Well, out in the ocean and in the river, that's kind of a fair fight. But then imagine this happening with a flock of 1,000 cormorants on a 10-acre pond, and they start herding these fish, and they herd them right up against the levee. And the fish are trying to jump up the levees, and it's not really a fair fight. A flock of cormorants or pelicans will absolutely obliterate all the fish in a pond. It continues to be a serious problem, serious economic consequences. Wildlife Services here in the state that works for USDA, for APHIS, has several people hired to help with scaring programs and to help farmers try to keep the birds off their farms. But it continues to be a serious problem on farms without a really good answer. Birds also adapt to all of this. When you watch birds and you talk to ornithologists, I've seen footage that is just the craziest thing in the world. I'm sure you've all seen great blue herons, for example. They're a wading bird, long legs, they walk along and they pick something out of the water. I've seen footage where a heron that's completely submerged under the water just emerges from under the water with fish in its mouth. And so that's not normal behavior, but where the fish are when the food is there, they've learned to adapt. I've seen footage of a great blue heron taking a fish on the wing. That's not something that they normally do in the wild, but they adapt to the food conditions. And so it is a serious problem. There's no question about it. We have lots of estimates of the economic losses and lots of things that people have tried to do to prevent them, but the birds learn to get used to it. They adapt to it. I'll tell one funny story, I guess. We've tried some of these things several years ago, maybe 10 years ago now. Somebody came out with a device they called the Scary Man. They wanted to sell it to fish farmers, and they said, this is going to take care of all of the bird problems. And basically, it's a big box, and you can set a timer, and periodically it randomizes sounds and lights and strobes and all of that. But at some point in its cycle, this big balloon of a big thing that's maybe this tall pops up, and it kind of flops around kind of in the shape of a human being. And so it had just been installed out in our facility, and I knew it was out there, and I had to be out there early Saturday morning. I run pond studies. I have to be checking oxygens too. So I was out there real early. It's like, 5, 6 in the morning. The sun was just coming up, and I had just driven down by there, and there was a problem, and the electrician was coming out to fix the problem. It's one of these things you see happening before you know it, and they stopped right close to this Scary Man to check on one of the electrical outlets just as his box opened up, if you want to see somebody move really fast. But then when you looked really close, there was a little green heron just standing right next to it that never moved. The person that moved was our electrician. So it was pretty funny.